Hi, and welcome back to the...
Save that one. Save. Good.
Restart.
Take two.
Shut up and sit down.
I got on my bike. We've got a great show lined up for you.
That is Champ Bailey, one of the best in the business.
To have a name like Champ kind of says it all.
Gonna put my helmet on. I got on my bike. I know my signal.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with Matt Legrand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von Duren. Pro tip, go listen outside. You're welcome.
I got my car to my spokes, and I'm waving to the folks who are uptown. Uptown, waving to the folks who are uptown.
Dude, sucking at something? First step towards being sort of good at something.
Riding on my bike. I put my
Evan Price for the win. Right down the middle.
signal right. Riding on my bike.
My name is Matt Legrand, and on this channel, we are always talking about biking.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von Duren. I'm here with Lance Hepler.
Lance Romance. I'm here.
He's here.
We just had a big toilet flush right before Lance said that. So he held it together pretty well. He held it together as good as we could hope.
Potty humor. To his right, Evan Price.
Today, I drank in the car one of those, you know, the Herbamate little teas, the like canned teas that are supposed to be slightly healthier for you.
Right?
Yeah, this is my movement away from Red Bulls. I've only drank one Red Bull in the last 2 weeks, actually.
Really?
Yeah, one Red Bull in the last 2 weeks, and I'm trying to stay with like mostly bubbly waters now.
You got some bubbly water going.
Yeah, it's caffeinated.
Why
lightly.
the move away from Red Bull?
You know, I think it's probably not good for me long term, and I'm trying to not burn a hole in my stomach. So I think if I slowly start cycling off of it and only use it in small doses.
What about all those world-class athletes that are all sponsored by Red Bull?
I'm worried about their stomachs when they're in their 40s,
Okay.
so I'm trying to. I'm closing in on that age where I feel like I need to start thinking about those things.
Right on. Matt Legrand is in Sun River, Oregon.
He's in Sun River.
Doing a little
Beautiful
vacation.
place.
So we got
No
no
vacation with
no
his
Matt
family.
this week.
Nope.
But we're gonna carry on. We're gonna be strong. We can
All
do
right.
it without him. So
We can pretend like he's here. Yes.
Right on. Cool. All right, let's do some backpedaling. I did not race, so I don't get to really say much today, but the two gentlemen that are sitting here at the table with me, they did. Who would like to go first? You guys want to Rochambeau for it?
Go, Lance.
I'll go.
All right.
So last minute, I did decide to go I did not do the crit that was here in town. I ended up going to Bend, Oregon, and did the best of both race, which was a 3-stage all-in-one. It's confusing. It's an 88-mile race with 6,200 feet of climbing, but there was a gravel leg, a road leg, and a mountain bike leg. And so
That sounds like a blast.
It
really does.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You could choose to do the transition race where you transition from bike to bike to bike,
Gotcha.
or you could do the single steed race where you rode one bike for the entire thing. So,
Ooh, strategy-wise, that's kind of interesting.
well, you know, it's 55-mile road section with like 3,000 feet of climbing. So, like the skinniest tires you could kind of get by on would help you the most. I did the transition race.
Yeah.
Where I started on my gravel bike and then transitioned. And your transitions were timed. There was a T1, there was a T2.
Like a rack too?
Yeah, there was a rack.
Probably to change shoes, right?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Did you do a flying dismount?
I did not because there was nobody there when I rolled in.
Not. Yeah, it's not worth saving yourself for 4 seconds.
No, what's funny is so I did the gravel part. I actually went pretty fast in the gravel because that's probably one of my best. Whatever, I'm better at gravel, and I roll in to transition to swap to my my road bike. And I go to pull my road bike off the rack, and I hit the rack funny, and it collapsed.
Knocked the entire thing over. Yep.
And how many bikes were on there?
There were like 20 bikes on it.
Good job.
And I'm like, oh my gosh! And then I just pulled my bike out and swapped my shoes and like took off. So that was kind of fun. The gravel bike took me. It only took me like 53 minutes to do the gravel section, so not very long.
Oh, nice.
And my plan, my nemesis that I have been battling with, Court Johnson, he was also there, but doing it as a team. So he was doing the gravel and the mountain bike portion, and he had a woman teammate who was doing the road bike portion. Mm-hmm. And so he contacted me beforehand. He's like, hey, we need to ride together. We don't have to compete against each other. We can ride together. It will be great. Mm-hmm. And so the plan was for me and him to ride the gravel together and then have me catch up to his teammate. Whatever. I did beat Court on the gravel section. Sucking.
Good job.
And then, but because they just had to like slap hands and I had to like transition, she beat me out of transition by like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is no big deal. But I did not want to do a 55 or 52 mile road section alone.
No.
I wanted teammates or somebody to
and you could
swap
draft
poles
this, right?
With. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so it started with like a 6 mile downhill, so of course I caught her in like
physics
2 minutes. Yeah. I mean, I'm like 180 right now, and she's like
not 180. Yeah,
she's like 120.
Yeah.
She was, super strong cyclist. But the funnest part about the road, I caught her, and then we ended up catching 2 other people. Mm-hmm. And the one other woman we caught was actually Sarah Max. You guys may have heard me talk about Sarah Max before. Mm-hmm. I have done a ton of gravel races with her. She is like she's always competing for the pro women's podium.
Yeah.
And I always end up catching her somewhere in the middle of the race, and we like do a bunch of work together for the middle part, and then she like rides off to
go win. Yeah.
She hasn't done a race in 2 years. She hasn't done anything yet this year. She's been very cautious, and the first race she comes back, and boom, I catch her like 15 miles into the...
Yeah.
So I'm like, Sarah Max. She's like, Lance, I cannot believe I haven't raced in 2 years, and here you are.
Yeah.
So it was awesome. We got to work together for a couple hours. So
yeah,
there were 4 of us that worked together, and I ended up coming into the second transition zone. It ended with like a 1,000-foot climb where they all dropped me.
Yeah.
I could not hang with them anymore.
The exact opposite of the beginning descent.
It was also very warm, and we will get more into that later. But I came in and I transitioned to my mountain bike, and it was like a 22-mile mountain bike section, and I was ruined.
Yeah.
I was done at that point, and it took me an hour and 51 minutes to do the 22-mile.
Oh.
Yeah, a long time.
So had you started with the mountain bike section?
How many total
and
miles
it
is
was
that?
nice and cool. How long would it have taken you to finish that?
An hour 30.
Hour and 30?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a...
It would have been, it was like 20 minutes. It was 20 minutes difference.
Gotcha.
Yeah, for how bad I was going.
Was that 100 miles total?
88.
88.
88 miles total.
That's a long day.
And there was about 1,000 feet climbing in the mountain bike section, and I was cramping terribly, even though I'd been downing all these fluids.
Yeah.
And so I really did not think I would win, because the whole last hour I was basically just coasting my bike and trying not to crash.
Pedal,
coast. It was all this technical, downhill, mountain bike stuff, and so I'm just like taking corners and like just don't crash, just don't spin out, trying not to cramp. But I did end up winning the 50+ division.
That's good.
So it was crazy enough. I only won by 3 minutes, and the biggest difference was I out transitioned the guy.
Guy was taking a little bit longer to maybe did a change of clothes there.
He cramped up in T2. And
hey, that's fair.
So he took like 3 extra minutes to deal with his cramps, and I just like jumped on and took off. I didn't know that during the race because we were all, chip timed.
Yep.
But it was pretty crazy. So that was my big race. I did the best of both. Well-attended event. The men's single speed race was won by Dylan Caldwell, who is
he's legit.
Second was Max Chance, also legit. They're both former teammates.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Caldwell did it on a single steed, one bike for the whole thing, and he beat me by an hour
on a single speed.
on a single bike. Yeah.
Single speed or single
No,
steed?
single steed.
Oh, I thought you said single
That's
speed.
what I thought he said too. I was like,
It's
wait a minute,
confusing.
what bike was he riding? I was
Single
like,
steed.
did he throw gravel
that's what
tires
they-
on it?
That's what they called it. So he did the whole thing on one bike, and I transitioned to bikes.
Did he gravel bike it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like you'd have to. You really can't like try and stick thick tires on a road bike and hope it could hold up on a mountain
Yeah.
bike
Did
course.
you
Yeah.
happen to catch a glance at what tires he was running, just out of curiosity?
33 maybe?
No, I'd say 34,
I
5
think-
or 40s probably.
I think he was on 40s
Yeah.
because the mountain bike section was not.
Oh, you needed a little
You
more.
needed a little something for the mountain bike section. For
Yeah.
sure.
Did you happen
Yeah.
to catch a glance at the tire tread? Was it like a file tread?
It was
or?
mostly file tread
Was
with
it?
some knob on the side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't catch a sidewall.
I
see what it
didn't.
was?
I was kind of foggy after the race, so wasn't thinking
Wasn't
real
super
clearly.
attentive.
Right on.
But the women's single steed race or one bike race was won by Amity Rockwell.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
Unbound hero from a couple years ago.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
won
she's running
Unbound
up.
2 years ago. She just took second
Yep.
place at Unbound just
Dang, that had some big names.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, so they both
That's
showed
cool.
up. Second place was Sarah Max, the gal that we were able to help each other on the road section. So
Sweet.
Yeah.
and third was Dylan Caldwell's wife, Nicole Caldwell.
Okay.
So she was third in this. So it was a crazy fun race. We
Yeah.
had a bunch of teammates out there, and we all did fairly well. And so
Bend is burning lately. I'll tell you what, that race scene's heating up. It really is. There's like it seems like there's a lot of different types of racing going on in Bend at this moment.
there is.
Yeah.
They have weekly crits. They have weekly hammer rides.
The rubber mallet or something like
Yep.
that. Yep.
Yeah.
They the time trials are down in Eugene, but there's
Yeah.
mountain bike races almost every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So soon there's a 24-hour mountain bike race coming up down there, and then the High Cascades 100, which is a 100-mile mountain bike race. There's
A lot of mountain biking.
a lot of mountain biking.
Cool.
A lot of options around there. Yeah.
Evan Price.
Yeah.
You raced.
I raced too, and it was not in Bend. I wish I'd been in Bend. Ben would have been beautiful. Iowa, on the other hand, is very humid, and I forgot that thunderstorms are a thing out in the Midwest. And that's the other thing when I moved out here is I realized we don't get thunderstorms in the Pacific Northwest almost ever. I think I can count how many times we've had a legit thunderstorm, like seen lightning here.
Lance and I had
We were in one last week.
Seriously?
last
Yes.
Tuesday. Yep.
You're right. That was, and it's funny that you mentioned last Tuesday because I remember me and Melissa were talking. It was like, wow, that's the first thunderstorm I remember in a while.
It's rare though.
Yeah,
It is
yeah. I
rare.
mean, it probably happens 2-3 times a year.
Yeah, something like that.
We were in the middle of a gravel bike ride, and there was 6 or
You guys
7
actually
of
saw
us.
lightning that day too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was almost right over us. Like you see the lightning
That's
and you
scary,
wait for
yeah.
the clap, and it
Yep.
was like bang bang, and we're
Yeah.
like, time for shelter.
What is it,
While
the
this-
count
we
the
actually-
seconds
yeah.
per mile away or
Yeah.
something like that.
We
Yeah.
actually pulled over. We pulled over
It's
in
1 mile away. Yeah,
We
it was
just
less than that. Yeah.
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 We found shelter.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was torrential
Go,
downpours
go
too.
climb
so-
a tree or something like that, right? I'm joking. Nobody listened to that. No, but yeah, we on Thursday I worked and jumped on a plane out to Des Moines, Iowa. The S's are silent, as they have on all their signs, which I thought was interesting. They're really
Oh.
passionate about how to pronounce Des
It
Moines.
says right on there.
Des Moines. It says the S's are silent.
The
yeah.
S's are silent.
They had it in the airport next to "Welcome to Ironman 70.3 Des Moines." The S's are silent. It's like, all right, got it. But this was the site of where I believe the 2020 North American Championships was supposed to be. I could be getting that wrong. And the former Hy-Vee Triathlon location. Hy-Vee Triathlon was a big-time triathlon back in the day. I think it was an Olympic distance at that time. So Des Moines has definitely put on races before. But Midwest in June can get hot and humid, and it was very hot and humid. There was a massive storm blowing in on race day. So the night before, everybody puts their bikes out there, and they basically, I think before we even went to sleep, they already delayed the start. So they were planning on delaying the start because there was a big thunderstorm that was going to be blowing through. Thunderstorm
Thunderstorm
through.
at 7 a.m.
It was like 3 or 4 a.m. actually is when it started.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So it was blowing through strong. So originally, at least from social media and following all that, which is how they were updating us, it seemed like the race wasn't even going to happen, to be honest. A lot of people actually left, I think. They were going in, getting their bikes and leaving.
Like, forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, and me and Cassie decided I didn't come all this way to not race. It's I'm at the end of a bigger training block for me. So mentally, I'm pretty fatigued going into this race. Physically, I feel fine, but this was not probably what I needed. I was pretty weak mentally with this. I was like looking for excuses, I think, and this was a very convenient excuse. Luckily, Cassie being awesome was, saying no, we did not come all this way to not race.
Yeah.
So no matter what race happens, we're going to do it. I was almost hoping for a foot race at that point where they're just like, no swim or bike. Let's just go ahead and line up and do a half marathon and be like, awesome.
Perfect.
That's exactly what I need right now. But they send us a message in the morning, and it's a pretty quick message where they're like, all right, we're doing the full swim. We're going to shorten the bike to 28 miles and half marathon. So they just chopped half the bike, basically, which doesn't exactly favor me, but still was at least a race. So everybody gets in their cars. We're rushing out there. The one road going in is like a traffic log jam.
Yes.
So we all jump out of our cars and like we're all carrying our stuff and running in this pouring rain. It's just absolute chaos to get to. I mean, because we were only going to have for the pro field. Once we got into transition, we really only had 10 minutes to set up transition. Then we needed to be at the swim start. So it's still pouring rain, and I'm running towards transition, and I run into Jason West, the guy who, spoiler alert, wins the race.
Okay.
And me and him are running in, and Jason's like, dude, my flight is like today too. And I'm like, yeah, mine too. He's like, mine's at 3:30. Ours was at 5:30, and I thought ours was going to be a tight squeeze.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, Jason, how are you going to make that? He's like, I have no idea, dude. I'm just going to get done, run back to my bike. I'm probably going to ride my bike back, and then I got to take it apart at the airport.
Oh my gosh.
Jason West is an absolute champ. Anybody who's ever met this guy, by the way, Jason West is one of my favorite people in triathlon. He's like the most approachable, ridiculously fast human being you'll ever meet. Like, the guy is so fast, but is the easiest guy to talk to, very nice, and lives like a life outside of triathlon too, which is amazing. But we get into transition. We're all running around. Half the guys are forgetting stuff. 2 guys I know forgot to put their socks in their shoes. So they're running in Alpha Flies without socks. There were guys with like bloody feet after the race. It was a mess. But
everybody's preparation just got jacked. Yeah. Everybody.
Somehow, my preparation, perfectly fine. Bike was ready to go. All my stuff was there. I was like, I need to come late to transition from now on because that was the smoothest transition setup I've ever had. And trying to get mentally ready for the race, it's going to be non-wetsuit, and it's going to be an 80-plus degree water. That does not favor me. So getting into the water to warm up, and it's just, I'm so in my head. And it's I don't want to talk about this too much because everybody races and everybody knows those feelings, and there's no reason to ever think that that's a good excuse to go out there and not perform well. But I was very in my head, and swim started, and I'll tell you what, that was the fastest the groups ever swam away from me. Everybody was pretty jacked up and ready to go. And the funny part is the group went away from me, and then 2 guys came back to me. That's how I knew the pace was too spicy right off the start.
Yeah, it's a little too hot.
Yeah, so I went through the swim, almost swam the same exact time I did in Galveston, which just isn't good enough. I am not a professional triathlon swimmer. I'm a guy who gets through the water and then has to bike and run at a pro level, and it needs to not be that way next year for me to continue this. But lot of work to do for sure. And we had this like half-mile run up to transition, which I was actually happy for. I was just dead sprinting through to transition. In my head, I was like, less time in the water, the better.
Right.
But got on the bike and just pushed as hard as I could. I actually had one of the better bikes. I had a mid-pack bike, so I had the 33 or 4 guys who started the race.
Mid-pack of the pro field.
Yeah, so
yes.
I biked very well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of negative self-talk going on. It's not good when you're at the back of the field. Which is getting old, but yeah, biked my way back into what should have been good enough position to have a good day. I have no idea what my power output was, but I know riding by myself, it was well north of 300. So the power was there all day. The legs were there. The new aero position I've tried to work myself into is going well. So, get through transition, jump on the run, and just does not feel good to start. It was in the 90s by this point, and the humidity was like 70 or 80% because anybody who's racing the Midwest enough knows that once a thunderstorm blows through and that heat picks up, it gets really, really humid in these towns. Very humid. And this is why just shout out to Jason West for running sub 110 in that heat was insane. I mean, the guy's one of the fittest dudes in America right now, and he's...
Holy cow.
Yeah, a lot of guys were falling apart to slower run times than they're capable of for sure. But it was awesome to see some guys like Tyson Weiland trucking through in his first 70. It might have been his first. It was at least his first pro 73. He raced ITU, but running 115 in that heat. I mean, just guys, there were some guys who really rose to that challenge, and there were guys who did not, and I was definitely one of those guys who did not, and came through the halfway point. The stomach really started to cramp. My legs felt fine, but my stomach was really, really, really starting to cramp, and went into the portalette, and it was bad. And then came out. Yeah, it was not good. It was not good.
So it was a full evacuation.
It was a full evacuation.
Bowels not in a pretty way.
No, and came out, drank about an entire table's worth at one of the aid stations of water, and was like, all right, let's try. And no, Cassie was there at that point. It was took off the timing chip and turned it in for a DNF. So, yeah.
So do you think it was the heat and humidity, or do you think the heat and humidity led to the...
Yeah. No, I think...
I don't know why
it's... Because I've raced in tougher conditions before, definitely. I mean, if I was to build a race environment that was not conducive to my skill set in triathlon, it would have been that race. But I do not race well in humidity. I can do okay in dry heat, but humidity I do not race well in. But I know very few guys who would say like, oh yeah, I love humidity.
Right.
I lost that race mentally the days before. I was kind of having just burnout type sensations, and just when you go into these, I was talking with Josh after these races, and these pro races, I know all of us here have competed at high levels, but when you're not one of those top guys in this pro race, you have to go in so locked in. You do not get to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, you're out the back and you're done, and you're going to get destroyed in these races. And it's embarrassing. I mean, it's very...
Yeah.
That was the most embarrassed I've ever felt after a race, and probably the worst I've felt about myself after a race too. And this is not me sitting here trying to make anybody feel bad about it. We're all very lucky to even be able to race this year. There are places and cities putting races on. But I lost that race mentally. And as soon as I got off the bike and it started to feel hard on the run, I gave up. It was not my body or, the fitness wasn't there, the training wasn't there. The training was there, everything was there. It was I gave up. So
in almost every long endurance race, there always comes a point where it becomes mental more than physical.
Yep.
It seems like where your body is telling you, "Hey, I'm kind of done here."
Yeah.
But as an athlete, you can push through those feelings of doubt and telling you to stop. To push through that. Any marathon I've done, any long race, you always hit that. But if you're not in a good enough
physically
headspace,
hurt no matter what. Yeah.
If you're not in a good enough headspace to deal with that, forget
it's
it.
over.
It's like you pull
it's
the plug.
over. Yeah, it was. It's funny. I was thinking even in Galveston, maybe when I was racing a few weeks ago, the body probably hurt more than it actually did in Des Moines. But mentally, I was so locked into that race that. But it didn't feel bad at any point.
Yeah.
I enjoyed almost every second of that race. Yeah. It was fun. This was not fun. It was not fun at any point. So, whatever that means, it's just...
Evan, I'm so sorry.
It's tough
okay.
to see you go
Yeah.
from where you were at. Just I know it's a completely different race, but at the PDX Triathlon, it's just Olympic.
Yeah, I was feeling great. Yeah.
Smiles. You had a hop in your step. I mean, I took some pictures of you, and you had grins from ear to ear coming in from the run, and you just looked like you couldn't be having any more fun. And to hear you talk about this experience is like, man, that's a night and day difference.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually be, as me and Cassie were talking about this, I'm trying to actually be honest about. I feel like running a clinic in 2020 and trying to race pro, I've tried to put on this kind of just false look sometimes. I think that hey, train's going great, feeling awesome, clinic's going great, and
I'm successful. Listen to me.
I'm successful, and this is good, and this is going great. It's not fun to get your butt kicked in these races, and it's like I said again, I want to preface this with knowing that I'm a very, very lucky person with the opportunities I get, but when I've invested a lot of my self-worth into how I perform in these races, that's a personal problem that I need to address and not...
Just a reminder, Evan, you're going up against the fastest people, not in Portland, not in this region, in the country, and some
and they are
from
fast.
around the world. They're fast, but if you're saying mid-pack, you're still like in the upper like 0.5% of the entire country.
Yeah, and it's I think one of the cool things I will say after the race is, as I'm sitting there feeling bad for myself in the hotel as we're taking a sink shower, getting ready to rush off to the airport. Andy Kruger was over there, the guy the kid who beat me at PDX.
Yeah, very
promising young triathlete, very, very, very promising on a national level, and I hope one day international. Sure. I really hope Andy does continue to progress there. I'm hoping to get the chance. He's actually going to be in Portland this July for a bit, so I'll be hoping to train with him a bit. And it's he's 21, he's a young kid, but after that race, he was pretty shelled in the hotel. And I don't think that he'll mind me sharing this, but he was joking to me. He's like, man, that run was hard, like almost like tears hard. He's like, I felt the sensation. I needed to cry during that race. And he was not the only one saying that. It was, I think it's just, he's raced shorter distances and he's been good in those distances. The half iron distance in the pro field is really a race of attrition, like really is. And I can't speak to the fulls. I am sure the fulls are similar, but in the half iron distance is where a lot of pros race consistently. So you kind of get beat up for a few years. And I feel like there's some guys who continue and they're able to progress up the field. And then a lot of other guys that I know of that just never put it together. And trying to work that is tough. Yeah. Andy's a very good swimmer. So I know for him, he has the exact opposite fears that I have all day. He knows in that swim he's got to do really well. So he had a good swim. He's a very good swimmer. But then the rest of the day, he knows once he gets out of the water, he's going to be a good cyclist one day, but he's 21 and he's young. And he knows guys like me in the back of the pack who are stronger bikers are now moving towards him, and he's falling back away from that lead group. Right. And he's trying to go in the red to stay with them. So it was tough watching how shelled he was after that race mentally too, just how hard. It's not an easy day getting dropped and dropped and dropped, and then knowing people are coming on to you. And he was even telling me when he saw me at the turnaround, he was like, dude, you looked great, which is hilarious because I absolutely did not feel good in any way. But then he sees these guys running up and he knows they're coming for him. So it's this really rough mental day. It's just not an easy mental day when you're not one of those guys who's capable of winning the race. Right. It's almost this battle of attrition to like, don't suck. Like, just don't suck right now. Don't be the guy that's like falling out the back of this field. But yeah, I just need to rewire mentally, I think, is for whatever that means. But I still enjoy endurance sports, that's for sure. It's not.
Well, you say endurance sports though. The half Ironman, it's an endurance sport, but you guys are like full throttle through that whole thing.
Yeah. I think that
the numbers that you're putting down and to keep that up, to keep that pace up and do that race after race after race, that's hard.
It's funny because I think the half iron has become the distance too that like guys who race draft legal racing, which I have so much respect for these draft legal guys when they come out, but they'll jump into these half irons too. So it's becoming this faster and faster and faster pro field. Uh-huh. And it really has gotten to the point where I look at the effort I would put out for an Olympic distance, and it's not that much less over a half.
Right.
You're just doubling it. And it's just this hold-on war of like, okay, how long can you hold the throttle until it completely falls apart? And, for example, like Eric Lagerstrom, a guy who I know a lot of people listening to this will know, was having a great day until it kind of fell apart there towards the end of the run, and he fell out the back of the top 10. And for his level,
he was leading for a while.
Yeah, and for Eric's level of fitness, that's almost similar to the kind of experience I had on that same day, where you're just like falling out the back and feeling bad there towards once the run gets going. He ran 120 or 119, I think, which he's fully capable of running 111, 112. Yeah, so just knowing, as that top guy, feeling like you're dropping back and you can't hold on. You can't fake it at that half marathon distance. Once the wheels start to come off, it's bad. And it's not fun getting past all day. It is not. So, yeah.
Brutal.
Yep. Tough racing, but
still proud of you, bud.
That's why we do it.
Okay.
It is. If it was sunshine and rainbows every single race, it'd be pretty easy. So I think a lot of people would do it then. But
this is a good learning moment for you. I mean, you're still kind of stuck in that, like feeling a little bit down, a little bit out.
Yeah,
but it's
gonna be too soon. Still,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're still 24 hours.
Let some time pass, and you'll learn some stuff about this. And there's going to come a point in time too where you're going to be able to impart this experience upon the younger generation and let them know that this is what you have to look forward to there, young buck. You're going to have these races, and it's just not going to be pretty.
Exactly. I think for me it was it's always a good, like, any race is an experience. That's all you can boil it down to.
Sure.
It happens in one day, and you can't control sometimes what happens. But the one part that I hope I do take from this was similar to when I went to St. George a couple years ago. I talk about this race all the time because I wasn't prepared training-wise going into that race.
Yeah.
Now I was mentally locked in that race enough to know that even when I was cramping, I'm like, I'm going to finish this race. I really hated DNFing this race, but I realized that this was the exact opposite of that, where physically going into the race, I'm in the best fitness of my life. And that's an objective fact. Like, when I look at workouts, it's not even close, actually. It's as fit as I've ever been. And to have a day where mentally now I was not there and had to realize to myself, like, yeah, you were weak mentally on that day, which is okay to admit. Like, I don't think that's it's not self-deprecation or beating yourself up. You just realize that physically I didn't lose the battle today. I lost it mentally.
Yeah.
And I think that's just as important to realize as, hey, maybe my training wasn't there, which years ago is what I had to admit to myself. So, yeah, that's the lessons. And I'll be in much better mood probably in like 24 hours. Don't worry.
You need a little time.
Just need a
little space. Before
need a good
your
light,
whole life is reconfigured.
A light jog and a swim. And that's about
Is this your first DNF?
This is so. I was trying to think back. This was my first by choice DNF. Once in a local race, a Wednesday night series we had, me and a buddy crashed real bad, and the bikes weren't able to continue. So that was the other DNF, and that was a sprint triathlon. So I'm not really a Wednesday night sprint triathlon DNF on a broken bike. I'm not going to consider.
You guys crashed into each other?
So this is Carl. Carl will always blame me for this. There was a massive pothole, and I hit it and swerved, and then he ran into my back wheel. Claims he was not drafting me, and claims I went off my line. Carl was drafting me and hit my back wheel. But Carl Leishart's one of my best friends. Absolutely awesome guy. But yeah, we argued about whose fault that was for years. But no, this was my first DNF I can think of outside of when I had to pull the plug on the Ironman me and Josh tried to do on our own. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A little different story with that one. That was more of a, do we really want to be walking on the side of a highway right now? But
yeah. Right on.
Yep.
My back pedal did not have any racing, so I'm not gonna back pedal today.
It had plenty of good rides, though.
It also had you dropping your phone to the bottom of Round Lake, apparently.
Yeah, that happened. I was thinking about this. I'm like, how many years? It's been like 24, 25 years of having a cell phone.
Yeah.
I have never lost a phone once to anything. Never been stolen.
A quarter century is a pretty good streak.
I did break one screen.
Yeah.
Idiot. That was 100% my fault, and I did have the Apple Care. Got that taken care of.
Yeah.
But I've never lost a phone until yesterday. Trying to be a good dad and doing some stand-up paddleboarding with the family, and I had my phone in my pocket, which had this little Velcro strap on it, and I squatted down because we were going to sit on the board.
Velcro popped open.
And it popped open. It squirted out, and I saw it like right as it splashed onto the water. And like tried to reach for it, and like almost tipped the whole board over. I'm like, no! And I could just see it like kind of doing this little back and forth little thing. I'm like, bye, phone.
They should make them. Well, I'm sure this is not as easy as it sounds. If they made cases that were like,
Oh, I thought about that last night. That was my $1 million idea when I was laying in bed last night, like missing my phone.
Just make a floatable case.
You don't realize how much you use a stinking cell phone for. It's
I can't even imagine.
They need to change it because it's not a phone anymore. It's something else. I mean, because it does like 47 different things for me on a daily basis. And you just don't think about
a supercomputer all day.
Yeah. So anyway. That was that, but did have a bunch of good rides. The flogging ride was great. The gravel ride that we talked about earlier was a blast. Lance and I rode our bikes in the Columbia River. Into the river. Because we were so slopping wet.
Are the water levels pretty low right now?
No. They're not low.
Wait,
okay.
It wasn't as high as it was weeks before where we couldn't even go down on the beach, but it was still kind of up a little bit. But
yes.
What that does is there's stretches of sand that are underwater that you can ride on.
I think I know the area you guys are probably talking about too. Yeah,
it's wonderful for your bottom bracket, but
yeah, is it like east of Frenchman's Bar by about a mile?
No, this is down at Washougal Dike.
Oh, this is Washougal Dike. Okay, gotcha. I think there's another spot you guys could probably do this.
Yeah, we've done that.
We've done that too.
Yeah, we've ridden through the water there as well.
If that's low enough, yeah.
Yeah, but that was a blast. The Columbia was super
over there. Actually.
Yeah, that was fun. But it was just a fun.
We
week.
did the flogging ride, and we. Jake and I ganged up on some people.
Nice.
That was fun.
It's fun just teaching people different race strategies, and they think they got you figured out, and they try and do different things, and you're like, okay, let's do it this weekend. Yeah, it was fun. So,
yep. How many? So where was this local crit, by the way?
It was on Swan Island in Portland.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
very cool.
We had a bunch of teammates go down and do
I thought
that.
Ian Gibson was racing that.
He did.
Yeah. Won the old guys division.
He won 60. Yeah. There's
nice.
All the Masters racers race together.
Hold on.
Okay.
How
Gotcha.
about we do a little lead out news here?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we could throw that in there.
Champ.
Champ here. Guess what? There was a crit in Portland this last weekend.
Champ, welcome to the studio, bud.
So this is called the Red R Criterium in Swan Island. It was one of our first bigger weekend races in the Portland area as far as road racing goes. So a lot of people showed up. Yes. The Masters field all raced together. So everybody 35 and older all were in the same field. Mm-hmm. But they scored the 35 to 49-year-olds and the 50-year-olds and the 60-year-olds separately.
Nice.
Yeah.
How big of a field did that end up being?
It was 100 or something like that.
So they had 100 people out there at the same time?
Crit, yeah. Maybe it wasn't quite that many, but it was a lot.
That's a lot.
There were 50 in the 35-year. No, that's the wrong field. See, I'm just going to keep screwing it up, so I'm just going to shut up.
There was a lot.
There was a lot. The 35-year field was won by Dan Litwara. I think he had some teammates lead him out. I'm not exactly sure because he had some big hitters on his team that were directly behind him.
Yeah.
I'm going to make up things, so I'm not going to talk about it because I don't exactly know what happened.
We just make up a story.
I can make up a story. The 50 field was won by Greg Steele, and the 60s field was won by our own Ian Gibson.
Good job,
Congratulations, Ian.
Good job, Ian. It's the youngest 6-year-old I know.
The story of the race, though, was the Cat 3 winner was a non-binary athlete named Summer Newlands.
Very cool.
And they've kind of come onto the scene lately.
Racing for Timo?
I think it is Timo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
T. Morgan, yep.
Yeah. So they won the Cat 3.
Cat 3 Open.
And then also raced the Senior Open field.
How old are they?
20?
Yeah, the early
senior.
They look like they're early 20s, if I'm not mistaken. Senior would be just like the open field.
Oh, gotcha.
That's the open,
non-junior. Yeah,
gotcha. 1-2 field.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Like the P1-2 field.
First, I thought that you were going to tell me that they were 52. I was like,
No.
wow, impressive.
But won the Category 3 and then came back and also won the Senior Open field.
Where are they from?
They're from
Summer, you were saying?
Their name is Summer. I'm going to screw up the pronoun, so I apologize already. But
we're doing our best.
Yeah. Let's see.
Portland area, aren't they?
This says he is from Portland and 23 years old.
23.
Okay. Race age 23.
Yep. Race age 23. Yeah.
Wow.
So pretty amazing that won both those races and raced the fixed gear crit. There was a fixed gear crit as
I
well.
love that they're doing fixed gear crits. That's such an East Coast thing. I love that.
Yeah. They've always done that.
Yeah.
So,
they raced that as well and took 7th in the fixed gear crit.
They need to make that a thing out here for any crit fixed gears. Those are fun races to watch.
It usually is.
Yeah.
It usually is, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of teammates showed up, a lot of people raced. I think it was well attended. So
That's good.
That's good.
I know, because we've been talking about hopefully crit culture will come out here a little bit. That'd be awesome if that could start a series one day.
On national news, we had our national championships, USA Championships this
I had a
past
friend of
weekend
mine
in
racing
Knoxville.
that, by the way.
Really?
Colin Fitzgerald, yeah. He made it 7 laps and then got lapped out, but he was pumped. Yeah.
So there not only was there a crit, there was a road race, there was a time trial.
Yeah.
So
time trial was won by, was it Chad Haga?
No. I think it was...
It wasn't Lawson, was it?
I think it was Lawson.
Was it Lawson? Oh, I'm sorry, Lawson. That's really bad. Not that he's listening to
I
this.
actually don't have those results pulled up, but this is all coming up. Okay,
go ahead, because I need
Was
to get
it an
that right
Omnium too, or was it just individual
now.
events?
No, individual events. Time trial, road race, crit.
How many people stacked up and did multiples? Quite a few?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lawson, what is his name?
Lawson Craddock.
Yeah, thank you.
EF Foundation. Yeah,
I think he won the time trial and took like 4th in the road race.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah,
he made a move at the end. I know that was pretty impressive. But
Yeah.
then I think somebody from Rally dragged him back
Correct.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy came over the top of him. They were.
Yep.
It was like 7 guys in the lead in the road race, and they kept like they're all like buddies. They all know each other really well, so they kept attacking each other, and one guy ended up getting away. And
these guys, I mean,
from Rally.
The guys at the front of those races are, Grand Tour guys, so they race each other all year, and they've got bigger fish to fry here coming up soon. So they're like, and fit. They're, I'm sure, racing in that field.
Yes.
The World Tour guys around you, and you're like, all right, everybody just watch them until they go, and then hope you can hang on.
Will Lawson be racing for EF at the Tour de France this weekend?
Yes.
Kent Ross was racing there too.
Yes.
Local Kent Ross.
Really?
Yeah. He made it. So I saw his Strava said he made it 92 miles. I think the race was 115, which means he probably made it all the way to getting lapped out the last lap, I bet.
Yeah.
Which is impressive from Kent, because that's the bee's knees is that race.
So pretty amazing. The crit was won by kind of somebody that they weren't expecting, Alex Lamperti. Because
I saw his name. I did not recognize the name.
Legion. This is like the first race
there's
they
been some
haven't
social
won.
media drama around Legion lately, which I personally love. I love whenever there's this banter coming against and Legion against bantering others. It's like I like this kind of. It makes
it's attention. Yeah.
It makes crits more exciting when there's some trash talking going on.
So Legion did have their lead out train going for the crit, but they're missing Justin Williams.
He was racing abroad, wasn't he?
Him and his brother, they're all born in Belize.
That's why I thought he has dual citizenship.
Yeah, and so he went to Belize, got clearance to race for the national championship in Belize, and won it. So he was in Belize racing their national road championship. That's where Justin Williams was. But
Gotcha.
Corey Williams, Tyler Williams, all the other Legion guys were all at the crit.
So Justin
national championship.
went and raced in Belize by himself.
I think so.
Oh, good for him. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But last lap, Legion had their train going, but there were 2 other teams that kind of swarmed them, and 3 corners to go.
Somebody crashed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Corey Williams went down.
Yeah.
He went down pretty hard, wasn't moving very well. I don't think he was really injured, but he went down pretty hard.
Bad. Yeah.
And he also took down Travis McCabe, who
Yeah,
was the defending champion and who just did Unbound Gravel.
Yeah.
He was the defending champion, so he went down too, and so this other guy kind of came around and ended up winning.
Oh, look what I found.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. Yeah.
So
it's one way to be a national champ. Just wait for the faster guys to crash.
pretty crazy, so that all happened. So that's kind of the stories I found from.
Yeah. There was the track and field trials also were this last weekend, which was fun. That was fun. A couple just short highlights. Allison Felix just made her 5th Olympics. I know that we don't talk about like short distance stuff here, but like,
is the 400?
She's doing the 1 and the 2, and I think the 1 is where she qualified.
5th Olympics.
5th Olympics.
Holy
5th.
cow.
She is 35. I think she made her first Olympics when she must have been like 18.
Well, if this is
17.
Well, that's every 4 years
every
times
4
5
years.
is 20 years. So if she's 35, that's 15.
Yeah,
15,
but I
16,
think it's
somewhere there.
Yeah, I think she would have had to be. It would have been right around that age.
Unless she's older than 35.
No, I think they said she's 35 or 35 going on 36.
Gotcha.
Just had her first kid too before this one. It was just a tearjerker story if you want to see that.
That's awesome.
And she had to come. Oh no, wait, I think I'm wrong. Was it? It was in the 400. My bad, not the 100. It was in the 400.
It's the 400.
It was the 400. Yes, and she had to have a comeback in the last 100. She was like in 5th place coming in the last 100 and had to like kick it down the finish, which was awesome. Local Portland runner, former University of Portland runner, and Cassie used to know him as well. Woody Kincaid is our 10K Olympian.
Oh, cool.
Closed the 10K in a 53-second 400, which is absurdly fast. For reference, Mo Farah, when he won the 10K gold, closed in a slightly slower time. He was like 53.8, and Kincaid closed in 53 low.
No,
Grant Fisher was second, and cool story, Joe Klecker, who anybody who follows running enough, Joe Klecker's a University of Colorado guy, rocks the mustache when he races, very Prefontaine-esque type runner, just a grinder, not the prettiest runner of all time, but just an absolutely awesome guy. Works his butt off, was third in the 10K, and will be an Olympian, which is amazing.
That's cool.
Yep. And what else? Emma Coburn is dominating the steeplechase. Yeah. Emma Coburn, I really hope wins gold in the steeple. She's amazing. And yeah, outside of that, there was a big doping story with Shelby.
No. Just eat lots of pork burritos, folks, and you'll go faster.
I know. This is Shelby. This was basically a ban that's probably going to end her career because she's not young. So, I mean, she tested positive for I'm going to get the steroid wrong, so I won't even say a specific type of steroid that is found in pork. And
nandrolone?
She's claiming.
I think you're right, yeah.
Yeah, she's claiming very similar to, if anybody remembers, I'll bring this back to cycling, Alberto Contador's
said he had steak
positive test where he said he had
testosterone from
where he
steak.
said he had a specific type of, where he was claiming somebody was trying to get him to test positive, I guess. I really like Shelby, so I so hope that she is telling the truth. But we have heard this story a lot.
I've heard it a lot.
Well, her results have been really strong in a year where testing was minimal. And I would love to say I hope that that's just her hard work and this is just bad timing.
Yeah.
But she also took a lie detector test
Yep.
and passed it. Not that those obviously, you can be, anybody can pass a lie detector test if they want to. But she also passed a hair sample test.
Yeah. There's ways that they can test for how long this was in your body. And it was just a short little spike, a little blip, which would be completely in line with what she's saying.
What she's saying. Now, one of my buddies was saying, he's like, you could say that she had just started her steroid cycle and hadn't, been on it long enough and just a really inopportune test nicked her. So that is possible because I'm always trying to see it from both sides there because my gut just says oh no, Shelby would never do that. But I know every Contador fan was probably like, of course Contador ate some bad steak and they probably tried to poison him. It's like, no, Alberto Contador was on some good stuff. But
by show of hands, who's eating pork burritos now on a regular basis?
I haven't had a pork burrito in years.
I haven't gotten tested once, so I'm going to start eating pork burritos on a weekly basis.
Our vegan friend over here is going to be slower than everybody.
I know, yeah. But yes, that was kind of a big deal because I think Shelby was really good. Shelby was one of the fastest in the world over the 5K and 1500 probably, depending on whatever she wanted to race. But yeah, it's tough.
One of two choices, Evan.
Mm-hmm.
Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Not guilty?
That's what my gut says is not guilty.
Yeah. Lance, what are you saying?
Guilty because
you think so?
We've heard the story.
We have heard the
story
a lot. We have heard the story a lot.
I think given the information that she's brought to light and the fact that what she's saying carries some validity, and the testing that they've said, and she's passed all these other little supplemental tests, I'm going to go out and say that she's not guilty. And I think that they need to look into this a little bit more as opposed to just upholding this 4-year ban because that sucks.
It's a blanket ban, and that kind of sucks. It does.
They need to make sure that what they're doing is not this just shotgun approach.
I like that they're clearly the testing is intense here in the U.S., which I like, but I agree with you. Is the problem with intense testing is then if you oversight, you can ruin somebody's career and life. Really ruin her life. This is her livelihood. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
She's probably losing sponsors. She's probably got a lot of
just dropped
PR stuff, and all of a sudden she's a nobody.
Not making money for 4 years. That's tough. And there's speaking of in also short distance racing. You look at a guy like Justin Gatlin, who everybody forgets. Don't get me wrong. I like Justin Gatlin. I like the intensity that man brought to sprinting. I like the person I think he was outside of this episode of his life.
100-meter runner from the U.S.
Yes, 100-meter runner from the U.S. Gold medalist in, I forget what year. But whatever. 5-time medalist, though.
Yeah.
Was known as the guy who always got beat by Usain, basically.
Yeah.
But he tested, I forget what cycle he tested positive in. But he was banned for a couple years and came back. And
he served his ban
and came back.
Yeah.
He was at the trials too this year, he has gray hair, which is awesome. If there's a sprinter
with gray hair,
and the guy's got gray hair. I think somebody was saying he was close to twice the age of one of the guys in the race. Wow. Oh, no, wait, he's over. There was an Oregon sprinter that made the finals, and I think they were saying that he's exactly double his age, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just funny. But so Gatlin in the semis or quarter, I forget, in one of his heats ran very well. Qualifies for the finals, but in that race really pulled his hamstring bad and was willing to not race.
Oh, yeah.
And goes, what was I considering not racing, but went out there and raced the finals anyway, and like had to pull up at one point. But had like this emotional like finish where like his sprinting career's done.
Yes.
And we forget how long this guy's been. This guy's been at the top end for like 20 years of sprinting, like a long time now. So, and I think in that sport, staying at the top in the 100-meter dash, like the guy who won is Trayvon Bromwell, I think. He's like 26, 27, and people are calling it like his comeback later in his career. He's like 27, I think.
He's not.
And people are like, I think he had like an injury a little bit ago. People are like, man, is his career done? He's getting in his late 20s. He's almost washed up. But,
that's crazy.
But yeah, it was cool to see Justin Gatlin also have his last kind of swan song. It was almost more fitting that a guy who was at that level, instead of like winning his final and qualifying for another Olympics like Allison Felix, you got to see Allison Felix, get to another Olympics as her end. It was kind of cool to see Justin Gatlin have to pass the torch off to a bunch of younger guys by like limping through his last 100, running a time that like maybe a semi-normal human being could run.
Right.
Justin Gatlin and me could do a 100-meter race with him with a 75% torn hamstring. I'd still put my money on him, but it'd be closer at least.
Nice. Cool. Anything else?
Yes, there's one more story that's worth talking about.
Bring it.
Lauren Stevens. This was at the U.S. National Championships on the road. Kind of a crazy story. She just did Unbound Gravel and was hoping to make the Olympic team for the road race for the U.S.
Yeah.
She gets the call like 3 days ago saying, sorry, you haven't been selected for the Olympic team. So she did not make it on the Olympic team, went to the U.S. National Championships, won the road race.
Really?
Beat everybody else, including the Olympians
That
who
is
were
sweet poetic justice.
A big, giant middle finger.
That is very sweet poetic justice.
Crazy enough, she's on the same team as Clara Honsinger.
Really?
For the road, and Clara helped her like all the way to the final 10K. The final 10K, Clara pulled off and said, "I've done my job." And Lauren won in a breakaway that she did in the last 10K. So
That's awesome. That is awesome.
I thought that was kind of a cool story too.
That is.
Also, did we talk about this last week that I'm already wrong about Chris Froome not being in the Tour de France?
He has been
picked. Number one thing I've first been wrong on before the Tour de France even starts, I'm already wrong.
And also the big news this morning.
Oh God, what am I already wrong on again? Richie Port's not racing in the Tour. No, what is it?
Sam Bennett out, Mark Cavendish in.
Oh, I did see that Cav is in. Yeah.
So Cavan is doing the Tour, and he is going to be the protected sprinter on a Quick Step. Yep.
That's a bummer. Quick Step. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, Bennett's out.
Over under on one stage win. I'll take the under.
I don't know about that.
So Evan, can we get that set up again to do the pool for the Tour de France like we did last year?
Yeah.
That was a blast, and I think we put that out there on Facebook for other people that listen to the podcast. Can we do that?
Oh yeah.
All right. If you need help, let me know because I know you got a pretty jacked schedule this week.
We got what, a week?
It starts this Saturday.
Yeah.
Starts this Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can put up a pool. We can just have. What should we do? Well, we did a fantasy. Last time, didn't we? Oh, yeah. And it was on, was it NBC Sports? Oh, no, it was actually Tour de France's website, wasn't it?
I don't know what the thing is. We can find all that information, but we can post that up on the Facebook page for Dialed Podcast. And if you want to join that, come on in, have fun, and do it. We'll put our picks in there that we put on last week.
Official. Yeah, I think it was actually on the Tour de France website. Here, I'll send you the link so we actually have that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Anything else, Champ?
Champ out.
Sweet. Hey, let's do a Patreon.
We got
Patreon
music.
A little fun stuff. You switch it up here a little bit, right? All right, so we're going to do another drawing. You can, if you win, there's only a few names left in here before we throw everybody's name back into the hat. You get to pull something out of the little grab box over there of goodies, and the winner this week is
Chris Weirman.
Chris Weirman.
Chris Weirman.
Chris Weirman or Chris Wireman?
Chris Wireman.
Which one is it?
Chris Weirman.
Nailed it.
Chris will tell you to this day that everybody kind of calls him the wrong one all the time, and he just rolls with it because he's such a nice guy.
Right. That sounds like
but
Chris.
What's funny is he's always correcting us when we say woot instead of wout.
Yes.
So he definitely has an opinion. Chris, let us know. We've known you for, 4 or 5 years now.
Wireman or Weirman?
Hopefully he's getting a chuckle out of that. But anyway, if you're interested in becoming a patron, go to dialpodcast.com. Click on the Patreon link there and go pick a patron that works best for you. We appreciate all of the support of everybody. And once we finish everybody's name in this hat, I think we need to kind of do a few more other little things. So stay tuned for some other fun stuff coming up for all of our patrons. We want to make sure to say thank you and show support and all that fun stuff. Cool.
Cool.
That's it. Cool. Let's talk about some stuff and things today on the podcast. Our topic.
What are we talking about?
Our topic is going to be racing and training in the heat. That's timely.
That is timely.
Jeez, I wonder who came up with that.
I guess the two guys who had to do it this weekend.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. There's preparation. There's like the heat exhaustion element that you need to be mindful of. There's the mental aspect. And then there's just, so many ways of having to put all that together so that you can find success as opposed to the alternative.
Yeah.
So thanks for that text, Evan. Let's talk about like your guys' just sensations of what you dealt with a little bit more over this past weekend and what you would have done differently to help you get prepared for that. And it's kind of hard because we live in an area where we don't get to really go out and participate in that.
No,
too
it's
much.
pretty. It's very temperate here in my opinion. I mean, if I'm looking at a region where I'd want to train without having to be affected by heat, really the Pacific Northwest and maybe the Northeast are going to be the two that I'm going to go with.
Right.
Yeah. And even the Northeast, I think it's more humidity than we do.
And right now we're in the middle of a heat wave that's just kicking in.
Yeah.
It was 93 or 94 yesterday, and like this weekend we're going to be looking at temps in the hundreds. And there's a big giant race, the Baker City Classic.
Baker City Classic, our four stage race here in Oregon, and with a bunch of big hitters coming to that.
Yeah. What's the temperature going to be out there?
It's in the mid 90s on Friday and Saturday, and pushing 100 on Sunday.
Sunday's the long
day with like 7,500 feet of climbing. It ends on a big 3,500 foot climb.
And it's like an 80-mile race, isn't it?
Yeah, correct. 80
and hot air up there.
So a lot of folks
and
here,
at elevation.
Yeah, a lot of folks here are not prepared for that. So hopefully they were out this past weekend trying to get some heat acclimation, but it takes a little bit of time. How long does it take to get heat acclimated, Evan?
That's interesting. So I know really it's really hotly debated. So altitude studies, you'll see a bunch of different numbers out there. And it's funny because I really do think it boils down to, for altitude, it boils down to, well, it depends, which is always the worst answer for anything. But it really depends on the person. The number I hear frequently is like 3 months. And that's just what Boulder folks always say, is it takes 3 months to, adapt to Boulder. I've had a friend who told me it took him a year. I have another friend who goes there and he's like, I don't feel any different. So I think it completely depends on the person. I feel like heat is very similar.
Should ask our friend Jordan Rickards, who's been there for about 6 months now?
Jordan, I would say it took him, we actually talked about this, and Jordan can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was around 3-4 months.
Yeah, but it's
just the last month or two he's been feeling really good.
You can see his numbers and his rides and his volume.
He's acclimated now. Yeah. Now, even once you're acclimated, there are still going to be limitations, even for your most efficiently acclimated.
Yeah, but when he flies back into town to ride with us,
it just crushes it. Yeah, you're gonna absolutely crush it. He's gonna be drowning in oxygen. But really, what you're looking at with heat is there's a lot of physiological adaptations that have to be in your favor. One really does need to be the efficiency of your sweat rate. That means how quickly you start sweating, which is good. Mm-hmm. Your body's ability just to naturally cool itself down. And also, I really do think there's a lot of what's your rate of vasodilation to vasoconstriction, which is your actual ability to get your blood to the surface of your skin so that it can cool off. This is when people become really, really vascular looking in the heat. That's actually your body trying to literally cool down your blood and also open up as much vaso return as you can back into your system. Mm-hmm. This is where you see, if you've ever seen cyclists pictures where guys after big heat, long climbs in the Tour de France, their calves just have more veins than you could imagine in there, Now, this is not, that's not, I just forgot the name of it, varicose syndrome, which is, if anybody's ever seen the George Hincapie picture of his varicose veins, he had to get surgery out, was ridiculous. Completely different story. But
was that related to cycling?
Yeah.
I thought that was more of like a...
George, I think, was probably predisposed to that already, but I think it definitely was cycling induced too. Yeah, he was predisposed to it, and then obviously rode a bike a lot and very well. So there's going to be an adaptation time period. I think when people are like, "Oh, I need to train a couple days in heat," I don't think that that's worthless, but don't expect that you're just going to adapt after a couple weekends. This is where, I know in the triathlon world, when they know the big races are going to be in heat, guys like Lionel Sanders will go live in Arizona for a while, 6 to 9 months, if not a year, living in Arizona and training in Arizona. I think it takes a long time, and I also think that if you're going to do it for a short period of time, it's more mental. So it's more, I need to expose myself to the sensation of 80% humidity.
Yeah.
and what are my reasonable, like, do a workout in that heat and then realize, okay, if I wanted to do, 300 watts for this hour and I get into the heat and all of a sudden 275 feels really hard, you better know that going into your race. Because if you're racing in Baker City and it's 102 degrees and you're on that climb and you're at altitude and you were doing your intervals in Portland in 72 degree weather, you need to know that number is not going to be the same.
There was a Portland guy in that race 3 or 4 years ago that buried himself going up the climb on a hot day.
Oh, God.
And
cracked hard.
Got a helicopter ride off the mountain.
There you go.
Because he was going into heat stroke.
Yeah.
Past heat exhaustion into heat stroke.
Yeah.
They not life flighted him, but they
had to fly him out of there.
They had to fly him out of there.
Yeah.
Had to back up.
It's not worth it. No. That in no capacity is worth it. So, yeah, you need to reasonably know what you can reproduce. It's similar to, in Kona it's Jan Frodeno's not going out at what he would try to run his marathon off the bike in Roth.
Right.
When it's Germany, nice, cool, perfect weather, speed course. Jan Frodeno's going pedal to the metal that entire time because he knows exactly what physiologically he can do. Jan doesn't live in Kona. Kona is hot. Very hot.
Yes.
When he gets there, he tempers his effort because he knows, okay, if I want to run 5:30 pace, or whatever, 5:40 pace in Roth, in Kona, 6 minute might be as fast as I'm possibly able to go.
Yeah.
And you need to know that because otherwise, I think more important than the adaptation is knowing what your limitation is going to be. Yeah.
I personally have not adapted very well to the heat.
Neither have I.
Part of it because I live here in the Northwest. And I don't know if you remember, but in April I took a trip to Las Vegas with my wife because she was at a soccer tournament, and I went out and did a 5-hour ride and promptly rode myself right into heat exhaustion.
Yeah.
On a 5-hour ride. In April, when it was only 90 degrees that day, but, I hadn't experienced anything, and I just kept pushing harder and harder and just about ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
I've had the same thing happen. I used to live in Southern California, and I was perfectly heat acclimated. I could go out and ride for 2, 3, 4 hours at a pretty strong clip when it was like in the upper 90s, if not even into the 100-degree mark. As long as I was hydrating, I was fine. You move to the Pacific Northwest, and it's amazing how quickly that goes away. You lose that. So we had a training camp. It was in Palm Springs. And we went down there, and I was in relatively good shape. It was back in 2018. And we get down there, and the first day it was a 75-mile ride. But the temps it started out like at 70. By the time we were finishing the ride, it was like 90, 91, 92. Jeez. Going up the last climb that we were doing, I watched my watts kind of stay the same, and I watched my heart rate go like through the roof. And then I watched my watch just like crank down, and I'm going slower and slower, and I was in full-on heat exhaustion. So, and I got to the top, and I was like delirious, needing water and salt and all the other fun stuff, and it was a bad experience. I really felt crappy, and thankfully it was a downhill ride back to the house, but it took me the entire night to rally back so that I could be able to do the ride the next day.
Oh,
that was brutal.
That's what happened in April, where I got so bad my hands were cramping.
Yep.
And I started vomiting and couldn't stop vomiting.
Yep.
And I'm cramping so bad on my legs that I'm like in the front seat of the van, and Brandy's trying to she's like, Lance, what? She was desperately trying to get me to the hospital because I'm like, you need to get to the hospital for me.
I need an IV badly.
Yeah, but I ended up turning it around.
Yeah.
So it kind of went away. I didn't end up at the hospital. But like this weekend, it was going to be 85 or so on race day in Bend, where it's not that hot. But that's hot for me. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I started an hour earlier than I normally would have. Mm-hmm. And I was pounding fluids all morning trying to hopefully keep that at bay. I had extra electrolytes in all my drink mixes because I knew it was going to be difficult, and I still dealt with it in the last hour.
Yeah.
It was a 5.5-hour race for me, and the last hour I was still battling heat symptoms.
One of the pictures you posted on your Strava was you looking like a salt lick. You were just covered in white salt everywhere.
Yeah.
And there it is right there.
All in my gut.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was looking at that and saying,
so much salt.
Lance was probably dealing with a little bit of crampiness, a little bit of fatigue towards the end, but he still got it done. Still got it done.
Yeah,
barely.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about some of the prep work that you can do. You and I kind of talked about this last week after the Unbound Gravel thing, and I know that he's coming out with a video on it. Dylan Johnson was doing some heat acclimation stuff, and
here's the rumor we heard
exactly
about Dylan.
Go ahead.
He for like the month before Unbound Gravel, he kept his thermostat above 90 degrees in his house. He just kept the heat cranked up in his house, hoping that he would adapt to the heat a bit.
Now, okay, I really did not follow Unbound that closely, to be completely honest. How did he do in Unbound?
He ended up 12th. He was an hour off the winners.
No, it's not because his fitness wasn't there.
Very strong
he
field.
had some tire issues.
Gotcha.
Tire issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can assume that maybe that worked for him.
But 12th. He was 12th out of, I don't know.
600 or 700 or something like that,
something
1,000
like
or
that.
whatever it was. It was a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think? Do you think that something like that, living in your house with your heater cranked up, maybe doing some trainer rides
every time you leave the house?
Here's the only problem with that, though, is, was his sleep awful during that time period?
Good question.
I'm sure Dylan kind of knows what he's doing, but we always joke, and I do the same thing, is like, we're really good at telling other people what is a good idea, and then as soon as it becomes down to yourself, you're just really, really bad at thinking through some of the X factors.
I don't know. Do you turn down the heat at night so that you hopefully sleep well? I don't know.
What was his electricity bill during that? God, I would...
He said he was all in for Unbound. He was rolling for
basically
it.
cash fork over $1,000.
But what about just riding the trainer while you're cranking up your heat in your house, and maybe limiting the fan? And
I tried to do that before Des Moines. Worked great. No, it did not. But that was I tried for the 2 weeks before when we were having our really, really hot days. Actually, it was probably for a month. That's when I was doing all my sweet spot work. Was
outside in the heat or on the trainer in the garage.
In the garage, and we do not have any cool air in the garage. So it was honestly
no
one
fan.
day. One day I wish we would have had a thermostat in there. I went outside and cooled off. It was like 88 outside. Went outside. I was like, man, this feels great. The garage was bad. So. I think it does come down to, I've thought about this a lot because there's in the world of triathlon, we are always obsessed with heat acclimation, with heat training. I do think you can, the human body can adapt to any situation you put it into, but it does boil down to there are some people who I think are genetically going to be adapted much, much better. You look at the racing world, there are still guys who throughout their entire career in triathlon lived in hot areas and raced poorly in really hot races. Chris McCormick is a really good example. Now, Chris was a bigger guy for a triathlete. He was like 170, 175 pounds. Australian. Lived very hot his entire life. His whole life. But notoriously struggled in Kona. Now, he won Kona. This guy was an amazing athlete, but his best performances were never in Kona. It was, he raced very well in temperate weather. You look at a guy like Henry Schoeman from South Africa, who's this little guy, very little, less area to cool off. You think about it, grew up in South Africa, has said he does not think heat training is hard for him. It is a guy who's more genetically adept to it. And, when the Brownlees, if anybody remembers this when they've seen it, when Ali Brownlee and Johnny Brownlee, the two British triathletes, Ali Brownlee had to help his brother across the line when his brother was starting to go lights out, made NBC News and ESPN. The only time triathlon will ever be on ESPN is when Johnny Brownlee's fainting and his brother's dragging him across the finish line. They're like, oh, what a hero story. And Ali Brownlee after the race is like, yeah, Johnny was an idiot. He should have not gone that hard.
Yeah.
They're trying to make a hero story out of it, and Ali's like, no, he's just an idiot. But
his brotherly love.
But the guy who passed them to win was Henry Schoeman, and Henry is elite at racing and training in the heat. And is that because he's lived there? I don't know, because I know other guys who do, and they don't race like Henry does. So, and Henry has said it's not like Henry's sitting in a sauna all day or anything like that. Right. He's just very good at racing in heat. Yep.
So preparing, what are you guys doing to prepare for it? Doing anything?
A week in advance, you're hydrating. You can't catch up race morning. You need to be fully hydrated all week.
Okay.
I have a sauna at my home,
there you go,
which I'm very fortunate to have. And I've tried to use that to help me heat acclimate at least 3 or 4 times a week. But it takes between 7 and 14 days to really heat acclimate. And when the weather's nice, I don't want to get in the sauna. But And knowing that I don't race particularly well in the heat, I try to stay away from hot races. I just don't plan for them as much. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll 100% there. I mean, it's not that I avoid them. I just I don't know. I guess I just don't do enough racing anymore to have that be a problem where I'm out there actually having to like prepare for it. But you know, the only time I can think of when I'm out doing a hot race was when, you know, Portland Short Track was around. That's 30 to 40 minute race. Yeah, and then PR, the road stuff is like an hour. And like I've been out there when those races were in the 90s, if not close to 100.
Yeah.
And, you know, attendance is down a little bit, but you just go out there and still do it. And it's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
In that sub hour range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not that big of a deal.
Unless it's a running race, that's different. But yeah, I mean, definitely for a bike race, that's sub hour range.
And I can remember I've talked about it before, the Barton Park race where I did it. It was an April race, and on that particular day, it jumped up something like 15 degrees. It was like upper 80s. Yeah. And the next day, it was probably down close to 70 again. And it was in that race that I dealt with all kinds of cramps, and I just kind of powered through it and somehow miraculously ended up winning that race. But I just felt like crap for a few days after that because I was sore from breaking cramps, and I was, you know, a little bit exhausted and whatnot. But you just kind of like roll with it. But I've never had to like prepare for like a Baker City. You know, I feel terrible for those guys.
This is why Baker City is going to be so brutal, is because cramps obviously happen in adverse conditions for a reason, because your body actually has to be using more energy. So when we talked about last time, when it's that neurological connection in the muscle, you know, peripherally you can be getting cramps. Yeah, your muscle has to work harder at altitude. Your muscle also has to work harder in heat. Baker City is the unfortunate combination of both of those.
How much altitude is in Baker City, though? It's not that high up, is it?
It goes up to 7,500 feet.
They'll climb up to 7,500. So, I mean, that's, you know, it's not, they're not doing, you know.
What's the elevation of the city on the whole? Because, I mean, if it's going up to 7,500 feet.
I think.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense when you're at that mile high.
3,500.
3,500.
Okay, so there. I mean, like most of that race is not going to be in a demanding altitude, but once you're climbing,
But that final day is going to be brutal. It's going to be hot. It's going to be long. It's 100% exposed because you're out there in like the open plains, if you will.
Yeah. It's going to be a hot day.
Yeah. Gosh.
Good on everybody going out there racing. Yeah. Yeah. That'll be.
I hate to say it. I know my body.
No, don't do it.
There's no way I'm going to line up on Sunday on that final day. I won't do well in the heat. I'd be no good to my teammates anyway. So I won't race on Sunday.
Gotcha. So you're still thinking that you're going to go out there and do the road race on Friday and then the crit and the time trial on Saturday? Maybe.
The crit, you could help them.
Solid maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the notion of, like, let's say you are heat acclimated, you're prepped and you're ready to go, and you're now starting to be out there doing this, and you're going to have to get through the mental aspect of that. Yeah. What are you looking for? What are some of the triggers that you know that you're going to turn it off and you're going to be completely done? And when are you going to be talking yourself through some of the crappiness of like what you're going through in a race when it's really hot? You kind of went through that this week.
Once I figure that one out, I'll tell you guys. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should bring somebody on who's done well in a hot race. Do we have anybody we know who does well in heat?
That's a good question.
I can tell you I can tell you how not to talk to yourself during a race. When you start to get hot, just sit there and tell yourself that you're the worst.
What am I doing? All my life choices are poor.
You suck so bad. Why do you do this sport? You're so bad at this sport.
Well, it might be a good idea to turn it off and just throw in the towel if you're dealing with stuff like heavy sweating, you're cold, and pale, and clammy skin, fast and weak pulse, you have nausea or you're vomiting. That's never good. Muscle cramps, tired, weakness in general. That's
once you feel tired, just pack it up.
Just more than beyond that. Dizziness, headaches. I mean, is there anything else that you guys can add to that list?
Dizziness, I think, is the big one. Once you're feeling dizzy, we're talking central nervous system issues at that point. That's not well. And here's the funny thing is I treat ultra marathoners. I treat ultra distance people. I've been around that community a lot. This is the difference between racing and doing an event. I truly believe ultra marathons and ultra distance events are events, not races, even at the top level. And I'm sure some people sit here and say, you're wrong. They're races. They're not. What they are is a war of attrition, even at the top level. And I'll say that because a race to me is purely performance based. There are numbers, there's selections. You think of a road race versus Race Across America. Race Across America, the guy, what was it, who holds the record? Strasser. the poor guy who was hit by the truck and died. Strasser, European guy. I forget his first name. An absolutely incredible athlete. But he's not racing that race. He is well within himself, knows his body better than probably any human being in endurance sports knows their limitations. So it is about knowing your limitations. This is the scary thing about a Baker City race or when you're racing in a Pro Field and a half Ironman. I don't get to decide my limits in that race. That race is, there goes the group, you better go.
Right.
And this is where they get dangerous. This is where you get a guy life flight off the top of a mountain and stuff. We're not racing within ourselves. This is an ultra marathon is almost notoriously has like, hey, start really slow, go slow in the middle, still go slow at the end, and you're going to be slowing at the end. And just hold on as long as you can. And you're staying within yourself. The difference with these races as you get faster and faster and faster and faster is now you've got a lot of hyper competitive people in an environment that may favor some more than others. That's a dangerous environment. So Lance making the decision like, hey, I'm not going to put myself in that situation because Lance knows how his brain works. That, in my opinion, is a much smarter decision than saying like, let's try to acclimate in 2 weeks and see if I can make myself a good heat racer in 2 weeks. Whatever.
I know it's not going to happen.
Because I don't want this to be like a clickbait YouTube video where people are always like, acclimate to heat. You know, it's like, no, that's not how this always works. Because I know plenty of guys who have dedicated a lot of time to trying to adapt to that. And they just get themselves in these race situations, and it's like the wheels fall off, and it's ugly, and it's really, really dangerous sometimes.
Yeah,
you do not want your buddy in a Cat 1-2 race in, let's say you're racing in Alabama, and it's 90% humidity, and you're from the Pacific Northwest. That might not be your A race. You probably shouldn't put all your eggs in that basket.
Right.
So, yeah.
There's a big ultra endurance race this weekend. You know Katie Gorzaika?
Mm-hmm.
She's doing 100K this weekend, and it's supposed to be triple digits.
Hot. Katie's smart, and she knows how to race within herself.
Yeah.
I hope everybody doing that race knows that. This is why when I talk about it being an event and not a race, that's actually out of respect for these things because a race to me is like we're going and playing. These ultra events are like, I mean, these are like feats. Like when somebody travels 100 miles on foot, to me, I'm like, that's not a race. That's like you just accomplished something. Like that's insane. But I really, really hope everybody's going to be okay because that's just going to be a little bit scary at times. Definitely.
It's nuts. I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, at what point in time does that become a liability for the race promoter too?
Well, it's always those races are constantly a liability for it's the same thing with like Race Across America. You look at like Race Across America, which is happening right now. My mom's on a team. She's not doing it. She's on a crew for a 4-person team. And I mean, there are parts of this race that they're going to be going through in America right now where it is dangerously hot.
Oh yeah.
They're in Utah right now, I think. It is hot.
It's hot there.
It's hot, and they're going to go through Colorado. You know, I mean, it's very hot everywhere they're going. And I'm actually more worried for when they get out into Appalachia country because that's where it gets very humid this time of year, and that's towards the end of the race where they're already shelled. And I mean, yeah, it's going to be a summer hopefully where nothing really, really bad happens because those are bad situations.
Gotcha. Well, we kind of talked about some of the symptoms from heat exhaustion. Let's just run through the heat stroke stuff real quick because if this happens, this is where you need to absolutely throw in the towel. Yeah. This is where 911 probably needs to be a part of the conversation, and you need to be taking extreme steps and measures to get yourself healthy again. Your body temperature is 103 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. You are hot, you're red, you're dry, and your skin is damp. You have a strong pulse, a strong fast pulse, headaches, dizziness, nausea, confusion. You've lost consciousness. Those things, if those are things that you are experiencing in your event because of heat, you need to get medical attention.
And I've never experienced a heat stroke, but I have heard from 2 people who have described to me that when they were starting to go through it, they actually felt cold.
Yeah, it's weird.
So I think that's if you hear somebody, for one, they're sounding off, like very off.
Yeah.
And if they described you, I'm feeling cold, and it is 102 degrees outside, that is where you're shutting down whatever that person's doing at that time. That is, and I think it's the tough part with these events from a organizer's point of view when you're talking about that ultra marathon, or let's say you're on a RAM crew, a Race Across America crew, is you're dealing with people that are going to be pushing to that point. So you know at some point they're going to be mentally confused.
That's the biggest factor between the two.
Yeah.
heat exhaustion, you should still
be able to answer math questions.
And know where you are and
Yep.
what you're doing and what your body's feeling. When you cross over into heat stroke, you're
and this is a fine line because I think that you do have some of these ultra endurance athletes that can like somehow operate in that mental complete fatigue state, and I don't know how they operate in those ranges, but they're able to. And I think that's where it gets really dangerous, because when you're talking about somebody like a Courtney DeWalter, let's say, who's one of the best, if not the best, ultramarathon runner in the world, I mean, she's doing like 250-mile races. And I am sure at some point in that 250-mile race, she probably thinks she's on Mars and is completely not mentally with it. So I don't know when you pull the plug with those people, but if you're on a group ride and you're not trying to, win RAM, probably pull the plug. If your buddy's not able to answer, like, hey, what city are we in right now? Time to end it. Like, and this isn't a, hey, let's let him ride home thing. This is like, you're sitting on the side of the road until we get somebody here.
So what you're supposed to do is call 911 right away. It's a medical emergency. You're supposed to move that person to a cooler place. So if you're getting off the side of the road, find some shade, hopefully. You're going to want to help lower that person's temperature with cool clothes and a cool bath. And they say not to give that person anything to drink.
Yeah, because you're talking about osmotic pressure at that, or osmotic levels at that point. So you don't want to, if their electrolyte balance is way, way off, or their sodium-potassium balance is way, way off, you don't want to be having them chug water, or vice versa. You don't want to be taking in excessive amounts of electrolytes at that point.
So would it be they're going to need an IV at some point in time?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be, they're going to have to assess where their levels are at and then decide. I think outside that, the biggest thing is you want to cool them down. I think that's the biggest thing, is get as much cold anything on them as you can.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, moral of the story.
I'm having flashbacks. So many times I've been in such a bad situation.
This is where, I think having these discussions before Lance goes and tries to race on Sunday is good. Because if you have a buddy where you're like, hey, it's going to be 104 degrees and I don't want to do this race, you're like, if you mentally already don't think you want to do the race, don't go and do it. Because,
That's moral of the story. Just be smart about it. And, probably try and surround yourself with people that can help keep an eye on you and vice versa, so that you guys know that, you've got somewhat of a support system.
Yeah.
So cool. I think that's it for that topic. Let's do one last thing. Evan, go, because I know you got to get out of here soon.
Yeah. One last thing. No, I have nothing really to add to that.
How about you talk
That's
about
basically about
post-race pastries? How about a little plug there?
Post-race pastry, yeah. So, there's this Instagram page. I'm not sure who started it, but we religiously follow a post-race pastries group that, for whatever reason, is always at the same races as me and Cassie are at.
Yeah.
We haven't figured that one out yet, but we ramped back up in 2021, which was awesome, because that's kind of the reason that we love to go to races, is to
post-race
to get pastries after the race. Des Moines was disappointing pastry-wise, to be honest. It was there was so I will say
in the Midwest you couldn't find good pastries in Des Moines.
It was so I mean, Des Moines is a surprisingly cool city in areas. It had one of the coolest skate parks I've ever seen, actually. But it was there were some cool restaurants and some little cool areas and a really cool farmer's market. But for like coffee shop pastries, we went to a coffee shop that should have been really cool, and they had like just a couple croissants and like a muffin, and that was it.
What time of day was it?
We got so spoiled. I mean, it was like, what was that, Saturday at like 10 or 11 a.m.?
They should have still had stuff.
Should have been a time period where you're like hopping with pastries if you're a big... I
understand if it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
And this was not like a tiny coffee shop where they're like, hey, sorry, Ma in the back was not able to like get it done. You're like, no, that's fine. she needs a breather. No, this was like 20 employees here, and they're like, that's all the pastries they had. So, but yeah, it was pretty lean on the pastries. I liked Galveston's pastries, were very good. Galveston had some great pastries. But hopefully our next race is going to be more local, and we know that Portland has wonderful pastries. So
if someone was into following an Instagram account that said talking about pastries and showed cool pictures,
they should follow Post-Race Pastries. We're not sure who does it, but we do follow their journeys, and they seem to strangely link up with where we go. So It works out nicely. Yeah.
Nice. Mr. Lance, one last thing.
Just shout out to all my teammates who are going to be racing Baker City. Please hydrate. Please overhydrate before these races. You're definitely going to need it. I think heat is going to be a big factor out there this week.
Oh, that's going to be I wish that the temps were going to be a little bit lower, just so it could be one of those things where you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Because I'm really impressed with the guys on our team that are going to go out there and they're going to race in the 1, 2, 3 category.
They are
Masters.
fit.
Yep.
And they are ready.
Yep.
I will not be able to help them. I'm sorry.
Okay. My one last thing is I want a response from Evan Price.
Oh, God.
Joey Joe Jr. Shabadoo went out to the lake and laid it down on the time trial bike.
He hasn't seen it.
Oh,
did he take my KOM out?
Yes, he did.
I didn't get a message for that, or if I did, I completely missed it.
Check your email. How much
Oh, boy.
do you think Mr. Joey Joe Jr. Shabadoo took your lake?
Oh, God, I don't even want to
KOM by?
know. Now I got to go back through my notifications, see if I missed that.
I haven't been
I'm
getting
gonna
notifications myself either.
Really?
And I lost a couple
Yeah.
this weekend as well, and I didn't get any
No,
notifications.
maybe Strava's behind on that. Let me look at Joe.
I know that they've
Was
been doing a
this
lot of
last
updates,
weekend?
and there was some stuff that was problematic for a while. There, like the Zwift rides weren't uploading. Like you had to go back
Yeah.
and reconnect stuff because they redid their whole platform. And
They
whatnot.
switched their virtual ride and then ride, which I know for people who actually ride outside frequently, I'm sure was great. But for me, that's now tough because now I got to add my hours together. I'm not a fan of that.
Thinking the same thing,
I
but
hate
if you
that.
go to the web version, it does show your total time for
Why
riding
doesn't it
on the
show that
bike.
on the mobile?
I don't know.
That's
it's
so
like
dumb.
you can break it out. That's fine.
Yeah,
but
that's
just
fine,
have
but just
one.
give me a total, yeah.
for ride. Just so you can see that.
Now I'm like, I got to do math each week now. All right, so hold on. I need to look at this. Does anybody have any idea what day he got?
It was on Saturday.
It was
or
Saturday.
Friday. No, it was Friday. It was Friday because he took Friday off of work. I remember.
It was
Tonk,
Friday.
Tonk made a little reference.
Here
to
it
the
is.
fact
I didn't get a notification, and he's, hey Evan, I'm just a dumb dummy, cotton head and okay, this title. Somebody go on to his Strava and actually read the title. That is hilarious.
It's hilarious, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see how much he got it by.
So Hannell, JoJo Jr.
God, he went
recently
sub 34.
got himself a time trial bike.
He got a
and
time trial
he's
bike.
learning how to ride it right now.
Yep.
He averaged 28.2 miles an hour.
For
Oh, dear
19
God.
miles? 16 miles?
He put a minute and a half into me. That
90
is
seconds.
insanely fast.
90 seconds he put into you, Evan.
We all thought that he would be close to you. I'm like, I don't know. Evan put down a pretty solid time. If he's going to get him.
28.2. That's like, he needs to go to Masters Nationals TT like tomorrow and go. That is insanely fast. Oh, my God.
What's the total distance in mileage on that?
That is, it's like
It's like, what, 30K or something like that?
16 miles.
Okay.
It's 16 miles.
Okay.
Oh, my God. He almost went 16 miles in a half hour. That is really, really fast. Whew.
So what's your response to that?
I'm going to have to try to go and do that, and I'm not sure if I can touch 28.2 miles an hour. This man's going to go and win Baker City. If anybody's wondering, I'm going to go ahead and put my money on him winning the time
hydrate.
trial. I think
Chris, please
I'll go with
hydrate.
I feel like this is I feel like now me betting on him in the time trials, like somebody being like, I like Filippo Ganna in this time trial. It's like, yeah, okay, great, really real underdog pick there. Oh my gosh! All right,
Yeah, but he's going up against Rob Tornai and Greg Steele. And,
I don't care. That's
and
28.
Chris Surratt. They're
That's
all very
28.2
very
miles an
strong
hour.
time trialists.
That's still 28.2 miles an hour. I'm putting my money on Joey. Joey, that is for sure.
Congratulations, Mr.
Ooh.
Hannell. That
Yep.
is one
Hats
heck.
off to you. Hats
he
off.
ripped one.
Yeah. That was pretty cool to see that. I was waiting for, because I intentionally
back
went in
out
there
there.
and made a comment
Yeah.
just so I could get some sort of a response when Evan replied.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it as of this morning, so I wanted to be sure to ask you about that.
I know.
thought
Now
that
I need
was
to
pretty
comment
cool.
on this.
And that's just one of the, for those that don't know, this was one of those local segments that Matt LeGrand actually had for quite some time. And then Lance and I went out, because Matt was on a time trial bike. So Lance and I kind of went out there and we worked together a little bit. And I ended up taking the KOM from him. And then I think Tonk and Hannell worked together. And Tonk ended up taking that KOM. And then Evan went out there and just crushed everybody on the time trial bike. They crushed. And now Hannell has brought it back to the cycling family from the triathlon group. So that was kind of fun. Cool beans. Anything else, guys?
I think that's it.
All right. We do appreciate everybody listening. We will catch you next week. Bye for now.